Well, good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you for joining me for this moment to highlight you and to learn a little bit more about you. As I know, but most people maybe don't know that are watching this video, you were appointed by our current governor to the county court bench in April of 2020, and you served with supreme distinction since then. I want to let you know, and everybody who's watching, why I chose you. So, we're looking at a member of the judiciary who has served with distinction, someone that we want to highlight in our Hispanic community. And to me, you really do fit that bill and so much more. Your commitment to your profession is known by everyone who knows you. And that has translated not only your legal profession as a lawyer, but to your job and how seriously you take the work you do every day in the bench in Miami-Dade County. Aside from that, though, you have superb intellect, and apply that carefully in all the decisions that you make, and in helping your fellow members of the bench as a collaborative person, as a team leader, as somebody who believes in the best for everybody. And of course, you have an enormous heart, and that is so important for judges who serve in the People's Court, which is what county court is, right? And so aside from all of that, you're a man of deep faith and a man who is committed to your family. And I feel like those values for me are very important. And I feel like they help you be a better jurist every single day. So for all of those reasons, it is my greatest honor for you to be the recipient of our Jurist of Distinction Award and to highlight you during Hispanic Heritage Month.
Well, Miriam, I think I said this to you when you called me, and I said it just a few moments before we turned on the recording here. I am utterly speechless. I am so humbled and grateful to be selected, but not only that, but selected by you. You know me, you know my family. We've known each other for a very long time, and certainly I could almost say I could put up the mirror image back to you for all of your dedication to the community, your dedication and hard work as this current year's president for the Cuban American Bar Association, but your heart and your faith and your family as well. And so I am, like I said, I'm not usually speechless, but I have to say that I'm a little speechless right now. I'm just deeply humbled and grateful to be selected.
Thank you for that, Judge. It means a lot to me that you think that highly of me as well.
No doubt about it.
So I have a few questions for you, but before we do that, I just want to give everybody, give you a moment to tell everybody kind of your path. Your path has been a little bit different than most.
Okay.
So I want you to kind of walk us through how you got where we are.
All right. So I'm born and raised in Miami. I'm a product of public schools. And after high school, I eventually got settled in deciding to study business. And I ended up transferring and going to the Ohio State University. And I got my finance degree from Ohio State. I then worked as a financial advisor for 9 years. I did that as my first career. And then was going through a period of not enjoying what I was doing at all, to be perfectly honest. And thought kept coming back in my head of maybe going to law school. I know this is going to sound somewhat silly to some, but maybe, I'd watch Law and Order and I would watch all these other movies and stuff, and I'd be objecting before the people got up and objected. So that started a process. I was married at the time. I had 2 small children at the time, and I decided to go back to law school. I worked through law school, and then eventually graduated and passed the bar and started in private practice on my own, basically, working for friends and associates that I've known for many, many years. And I did that for about 5 years or so. And then opportunity came up where I was able to go to the city of Miami and work with another mutual friend of ours and a past president as well, Ms. Vicky Mendez, who's a wonderful person and one of the best lawyers I've ever known and still know, thank goodness. But she had some availability. There was a spot available in the labor department over there. I'd never worked in any labor and employment law, but the opportunity came, and so I went. and I worked there for a period of time. And about 9 months into my tenure, if you will, at the city, a spot became available on the litigation team, which is candidly the main reason I wanted to go there. I wanted to get some trial experience. And so that was something that was able to take place, and I was able to try some cases. I got to do about 13, I think, jury trials. More than half of those I was first chair. So got a lot of experience and really enjoyed the trial work very, very much. And I mean, you work in government and in the city of Coral Gables, you know, it's everything and anything, and everything that comes your way is so you really are put through the furnace and the crucible quickly, learning a lot of different areas of law very quickly, and it's great. My road to the bench is a little bit odd in this scenario. I think a lot of my colleagues, you know, I've heard people say, well, ever since I was a little boy or girl, I wanted to be a judge. That's not me. I never thought about it, actually. And what happened is, early in my career, maybe it's because I was a little bit older than new lawyers, if you will, right? People would say at mediations or at hearings, you know, have you ever thought about being a judge? And it would strike me as kind of an odd thing for people to say. I mean, it's not something you hear all the time. And I used to kind of blow it off a little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm the defense lawyer, so, you know, they're trying to be really nice to me because, you know, I'm the one that represents the person that's going to cut a check if it gets settled. But then it would happen again, and then little by little it would happen periodically. Different lawyers, people that I respected and valued, you know, their assessment, their judgment, their discernment, and you know, you kind of hear it. You hear it once, okay, maybe you know, okay, fine. But you hear it 3-4 times, you're like, okay, maybe this is something that I should think about. And so then that started the process of me seeking a nomination or seeking an appointment through the nomination process, which I did. I applied twice, and both times I was very grateful to be selected by the local Judicial Nomination Commission. They're wonderful lawyers and diligent servants that serve on that. Both times I was nominated to the governor, and the second time I was able to get the appointment. So, and I got appointed about a month after we went into quarantines. So I was appointed during the pandemic.
Yeah, so to me, that's such a great story. And I got to ask you, because I think you failed to mention something important. You said I worked through law school. What were you doing when you were maintaining a family and going to law school?
So I ended up, I couldn't do the financial work anymore, other than, you know, obviously the fact that I was very unhappy with that arena of work. But I worked in pharmaceutical law school. So it worked out very well because I was able to have a lot of flexibility in moving around. So I always tell everyone the same story. I would get up in the morning, drop off the two kids, you know, my two older kids, now they're older, but drop them off at school around 6:30 in the morning, go and visit some doctors, then go to class, go visit some doctors, go to class, visit some doctors, go to class, and then pick up the kids and go home. That's how the schedule went for me through law school. Yeah.
So look, you know, lots of things learned, I think, from your intro. One, lawyers can do math.
Lawyers can do math, and good math, like advanced math.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a lesson for all of us. But also that, you know, your ability to really go for what you wanted, to be willing to switch. So many people get stuck in, this is the thing I chose, and even if they're miserable, they stay on it. I never thought of doing that, so I'm not going to do it. Clearly, that's not, you know, your personality. You're someone who's open to change, open to where life is taking you. And that to me is an amazing trait and so much to learn from.
Thank you for that. But candidly, it's one of those things of, I didn't want to grow up one day and go, what if? I didn't want to have to look at myself in the mirror someday, you know, many years from now, hopefully, and say, man, you should have done that, or you could have done this. No, that's not in
Living with regret
that's
is
not in
not-
my DNA. It's not in my DNA, no.
Yeah. Well, so with that, obviously this is about highlighting a Hispanic judge of distinction. And so we're CABA, and so I've chosen a judge who has a background, in heritage in Cuba, right? So tell us a little bit about your family's, Cuban story, right? We all have one, and what your upbringing was like. You said you were born here. Had they come recently? Tell us a little bit about how that all worked out.
Sure. So my mom and my dad both fled the communist regime of Castro's in and around 59, 60. They came here to the US. My father was, when he got here, he had to take a lot of classes once again in order to finish his medical studies. So he was able to do that here. He actually did some of his training at Mount Sinai when he got here. My mom and my grandparents came first, and then my dad followed after that, after he finished his studies. I was born about 8 years after they were here. So they had been here for a little while, and I was the first of three of us. So I have a younger brother and a younger sister. So it's funny, like, when you start talking about your heritage, like, I see a lot of different folks in my courtroom from different backgrounds, and I start to think, oh, I grew up with grandparents in my home, and we did. We had our abuela and Titi and Yaya. Titi and Yaya were the ones that lived with us when we were kids, and cousins nearby, like literally less than 2 miles from us. So and we initially, obviously I don't remember this. This is from what my mom was telling me, but they initially they lived in a little house with my uncles and some quite a bit of extended family near the old Orange Bowl, right? Lone Depot or whatever it's called now, but whatever it is. And they were all there for a period of years. And my mom, came here, and she had done like accounting work in Cuba, but here she was like, sewing and ironing clothes and stuff like that to help my dad get through medical school and all of that. So he could do that. And then, I was first generation. So I'm first generation Cuban American, born and raised here, born in South Miami Hospital. And I went to public schools, and, we grew up, what we affectionately refer to as Huechete. So I grew up off of Miller and 90 something 7th Avenue, and where that's the family background.
So it sounds like your parents, your dad, with your mom's help, was able to establish a career here and do better than a lot of immigrants did then, and frankly even now. But did you face challenges when you were growing up? And if so, what kind of perspective did they give you? And they don't have to be necessarily financial challenges. They could be any kind of challenges, right?
Okay. Well, I would say that, the one that I was thinking about that, I think that the one that was probably the most impactful that I can recall, my parents went through a divorce when we were in high school, and that was difficult. It seemed like there was a lot of kids that went through that when I was in elementary school, and then there weren't that many in middle school, or back then we used to call it junior high. And then we were like kind of the ones that went through it in high school. So it was a little bit older, a little bit later in life. And that did bring, pretty significant financial distress to the family. When you're going through it, it's difficult. Looking back on it, it's, you're looking at it as, okay, there's really kind of a blessing, and the silver lining there is that you learned a lot of independence early on, self-reliance. I started working when I was 14. I've been working ever since I was 14 years old, I think, with like small windows where I didn't work. I mean, I could probably count those in one hand and not use all my fingers, those times that I wasn't working. So I've been working for quite some time, and and you appreciate work, you appreciate the value of it, and how difficult, sometimes you have to go through some challenges in order to really reap rewards later, I think.
So you mentioned earlier when you were talking about multi-generational families and some of the people you see in court. Do you feel like those perspectives, those lessons you learned from your parents going through a divorce, from your economic status changing, help you to be a more sensitive judge, a judge who's maybe more compassionate toward those people that appear before him?
I would say, I would, first of all, I would hope so. So yes, is I think the short answer. I'm always kind of mindful of, you never know what someone sitting next to you is going through in their life. You may be the only incident of kindness that someone may see in a day. And so I'm always kind of mindful of that, when I have folks in front of me. From the perspective of, the context of this thing, I think that there's an aspect of it, of diversity and all of that, or whether it's important to have that on the bench, perhaps. And I think it is. I think that there's, the way that I look at it is, particularly, there is a distinction and difference for county court versus, say, circuit court, right?
Absolutely.
You said it earlier, we're the people's court, and there is no doubt about that. 90, maybe not 90, well, yeah, maybe about 90% of the people that come before me are pro se. They're not always, very few are represented by counsel. They're filing these things by themselves. They have no inherent understanding of legal processes and stuff like that. And, do I think that sometimes they come in and they say, oh, mira, Carlos Gamez, that might be kind of a say of like, okay, one of my people, so to speak, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in the sense of, it might bring some ease and calm to them walking into an environment that is unfamiliar, fraught with all kinds of rules and policies and things that they're unaware of, that at least they feel like, okay, I could settle in here, and I think I'm going to be, I'm going to be able to chart a path through this that will work out. So yeah, I think it's helpful.
That's an excellent point. Judge, you kind of talked about this now. Other than making a potential pro se litigant particularly feel more comfortable, do you think there are other benefits to having diversity in the bench? Maybe from the point of view of, approaching things in a different way, that it makes a better collective bench if it's a diverse bench.
Well, the answer, I think, is yes. But I'm always mindful when I've heard this question, and it was actually like one of the questions that when I was preparing through the appointment process, that it was one that, was customarily asked. And so I always consider it in this context. The judiciary has a very distinct and unique role, which is very different and unique in our structural constitution, right? The legislative branch and the executive branch, they can be more advocates. We cannot, and we're supposed to be blind, candidly, to differences and all of those things. With that said, and recognizing that that's kind of a uniqueness of this branch versus the others, I'm always mindful of when I was a lawyer, I always thought I was making comparisons of, okay, this judge I like. Why do I like this judge more than I like this judge? And sometimes it may be something of there is a vernacular that's inherent in practice in certain cultures that is different in others. Familiarity and comfort. So yes, I think that it does play a role, but I don't ever want anyone to consider that's in substitution for temperament, patience,
Certainly.
Command and knowledge of the law before them, effective communication, punctuality, those things, I put them like all in their own category. And then I have that also as diversity is another kind of important component that they should all work together, in my opinion.
Well, that's a fair point. So you told us kind of how you ended up applying to become a judge, because people kept telling you would be a really good one, and they were right. But what ultimately, was there a day, was there a moment? What was it that you said, this is it, I'm doing this?
Wow. Well, my mom would take credit for this one, and she would.
I love that. Moms always should get the credit.
She gets credit for this one. She at least she'll take like the lion's share of credit for this one. And the reason she would do that is because there's actually a photograph of the day that I graduated from undergraduate. And so, I know that there's some Kane fans here, and I graduated from University of Miami Law School. Okay, so I'm all with the Canes, but for undergraduate, I know that it's Ohio State, so it's sometimes a touchy spot. So Ohio State is one of the largest populated undergraduate schools in the country. It's always between 2 or 3 schools. It's like 55, 60,000 undergraduate it's huge. So the graduations are all held in the football stadium. And there's actually a photograph of me and my mom hugging that day. And she leaned into my ear that day and she says, son, why don't you get inspired and go to law school? And I was like, Mommy, are you crazy? Like, no way. I'm not, I would, it took me long enough to graduate with this finance degree. I'm going to go and do this. And so to this day, she still always tells me, she's like, tú sabes, tú te inspiraste porque
I put that little seed in.
Yo te lo dije. I told you. So I do give her credit. I give her some credit for that. But, going back to what I said earlier, I never really thought about it. I guess, anecdotally, I suspect that, there's times all of us when we're in law school, we're reading a case and maybe we're reading and we're like, boy, this is well written. Like, I wish I could write like that, or my goodness, this is such a well-reasoned opinion. Like the ones that always come to mind are like Learned Hand and Cardozo. I mean, it was just poetry. You're just reading, you're like, boy, I wish I could do that. Like from that perspective, that would cross my mind during law school. But the actual decision really came about through a very slow, I guess I would consider it somewhat of a slow discernment process. Had colleagues at the city of Miami that had mentioned it to me several times. You obviously know my wonderful wife and long conversations with Annie, about what do you think about this, and having her kind of her immediate support of like, you would make a great judge, you should do this, and go to it. And even then, even with that kind of impulso, it still was like, I took my time making the decision because I knew the gravity of what I was going into. And that's not to, I don't want that to sound like others don't consider that, because I'm sure they do. But I knew that I was going to be making decisions that would be immediate impacts on people's homes, people's families, people's businesses. And I don't think it's something that you ought to go into just willy-nilly, like, okay, well, it's Tuesday, so, this is the day I'll go do that. No, I think it's something that you really, you want to have sober judgment, discernment, time to consider it, and really weigh it out before you do it. And that's how I ended up making the decision to do it.
Well, without knowing it, you just gave the best soundbite about why I chose you, right? That goes right back to exactly that. This was not for you a career move to benefit yourself. This was not to grant yourself power. This was something you wanted to do to serve, to help, to make people's lives better, and understanding that, in fact, you have the power to make them better or worse, depending on whatever the law calls for you to rule, and that's an enormous weight to carry. So.
It is. And like I said, I don't think it's something that someone should take lightly. It's something that you really, take your time, think about it. And then, if it's still there in the back of your head and it's still something that you pray about it, and then I was going to say the other thing I was going to mention about that is going through the process of the appointment and the application process helped me a great deal. Most folks don't know, maybe they don't know what the process is like, but when I finished my application was 110 pages long. Mm-hmm. Certainly longer than my application for grocery store bag boy at the Gardener's Market on Miller, back in the mid 80s. But 110 pages, and you have to go through certain, obviously disclosures and all of those things. But part of the process also requires you to disclose names of your past judges you were in front of, their contact information, opposing lawyers. And so that one gets to be kind of tricky because obviously you're zealously representing your client and you're doing your thing. And sometimes any of us that have been practicing for any period of time, it gets contentious and it's supposed to. That's inherent in the practice. So I actually had to call, in an abundance of caution, let them know, hey, listen, I want you to know that your name is on my application, and I have your phone number there and your email. You may be contacted by these folks. And overwhelmingly, it was really humbling. I got to tell you. I mean, I don't want to talk too long about it because it'll bring a tear to my eye. But everyone was, even the ones that I was contentious with, and we would go to war in our cases, so to speak. They were all like, Carlos, you make a great lawyer, or you make a great judge. You were, zealously representing your client, but you always, they were there with their compliments, and it was reassuring. It was reassuring.
Yes.
Reassuring, and so that helped too. That's good. Especially when you get to page 104 and you have only 6 pages to go.
There's no better compliment than the one who comes from someone who was on the other side, right? And that's why the applications want you to list that, because if somebody's going to say something about you, it's going to be those people.
They would be the ones that would say something, right? Exactly.
So I'm not at all surprised that that's what they said. So switching back to diversity again and minorities, have you experienced or witnessed discrimination in your career, and what did you learn from those experiences?
In my career, I don't think so. At least it wasn't so overt that maybe it was something that, I put my finger on and go, that's discrimination or racism or whatever. I remember it more like when I was away at school, right? That's when it was most palpable. Living in the Midwest, I was the only guy that had a Z at the end of his name. It was the first time I heard spick. The word spick in a nasty, like as opposed to just a joke. And not that it's a nice thing to say, but used in the context of insulting. You're less than I am, and I'm more than you are. That context. So I mean, yes, I think, and certainly experienced it, and those are the incidences I remember most when I was up in the Midwest.
Do you think, what did you garner from that? What did you take that maybe you channeled into something positive?
Sorry, my internet froze there for a second, but I have to give credit to my mom again. So I remember when I was a kid, and she always used to remind me, you put your pants on like anybody else. You have 10 fingers like anybody else. You wear your shirt just like anybody else. You put it on just the same way as anybody else. And that always stays with me, that, don't let anybody else tell you or dictate to you what your outcome should be. That is, you can choose that, and you have the ability to make those decisions. So I think it drove me a little bit. I think if you internalize that stuff and it can either yield positive or yield negative. Mm-hmm. So I used it for positive and said, okay, all right, you think you're better than me? Well, when I get the A and you get the C plus, we'll talk then.
Right, sure, sure. That's a really good way to look at it. And so in that context, you know, you've imparted a lot of wisdom on me, and you talked about in the context of diversity, all of the qualifications you think are essential for a good judge, right? Diversity is great if you add it, but these are the basics, right?
Mhm.
Do you feel that mentoring young lawyers is beneficial, and why? And I want to approach that in the context of a lot of the attributes that you talked about a judge having are good attributes for everybody to have. And also in the context of taking something negative like a racial slur maybe, and making it something positive that makes you want to do better.
So the answer is yes. I'm a big advocate for mentoring. I still have mentors. It's not like you get to an apex in life and all of a sudden, okay, well now I guess I'm good. I don't need mentors anymore. I still have a mentor that I still go to and have been going to for many, many years. And you know, sometimes they're the ones that can see the wrinkles on your face a lot quicker than you can, so to speak. So from that perspective, absolutely. But I would say whenever I'm asked the question about mentoring, there's an equally important question that needs to be answered first, and that is, who is the mentor? Because if you're mentoring under someone that has bad habits, then what you're going to garner and what you're going to cultivate are bad habits. As I'm sure you know, my wife and several others, you know, serve on professionalism committees and stuff like that. And I've seen it in my courtroom where sometimes the just basic civility is lost. And I'm like, I sit there and I wonder, I was like, well, I'm not sure that they can really be taught at this point in their lives. It's something you got to learn either early in your career or preferably as a child. You know, learning empathy and learning respect and learning, you know, how to comport yourself. And, you know, maybe by the time someone's practicing 5 years, 10 years in, it may be too late. They may not learn that ever. So I think that, yes, it's vital. It's a good mechanism, and particularly because it's a learned profession, right? So, you know, there's a lot of things to be learned by folks that have already done it. You were a former prosecutor, so you know very well, you know, like trials and so on and so forth. The first time you do a trial versus the 20th time you do a trial is night and day, because now you know, okay, I don't need this, I need that. How am I going to get this in? How am I going to get that in? And when you're starting out, you're a deer in headlights. You may not know all those things. And going to an experienced, prudent, diligent, thoughtful mentor to say, you know, look here and do this and consider this. Not to play you like a pawn on a chessboard. I don't mean it to sound like that. You know, you got to let people bounce into their own guardrails, but at the same token, you know, don't fall off the precipice. Like, hit the guardrail, okay, bounce back and get in between the hash marks. And so that's the way I've always thought of mentoring. I think it's very important. It's useful in many ways, but it's also very important to make sure that the mentoring is done so that the fruit, when it drops from the tree, is still good and ripe fruit, so to speak.
That's a great way to put it. And so we're nearing the end of our interview, but we talked about what a multifaceted person you are and all these different things that you've done and how your career hasn't been this linear thing leading toward one particular goal. There's a whole side of you that we haven't explored. And so I suspect that other people might feel that this is surprising. So why don't you tell me something, a talent that you have that's maybe a little surprising for a judge?
So most people are a little surprised to know that I play saxophone and that I'm a lead singer in a rock band. That's kind of surprises some people, I guess.
Also very cool, I think.
I've been playing saxophone since I was, I don't know, 15, and I still play. When I first started college, I actually majored in jazz improvisation performance first, before I switched to business.
Which was a
And-
natural transition, clearly. Jazz to
Yeah,
business
yeah, it's
happens
right.
all the time.
Well, it was like in the second semester of music theory or sight reading. But yeah, I play in a band. I still do. As a matter of fact, I think when you have the reception, we would have already performed. We're doing the Battle of the Legal Bands on September 10th.
Okay.
The 10th. And so it's a great outlet. It's great for the soul. I'm blessed to play with friends that these aren't friends, they're, hermanos, right? I've known them more years than I care to announce. Some of them are godparents to my kids. I've known them forever. And so we get up, we make a little bit of noise, we have some fun, and it's good therapy.
And so related to that, I understand that when you live in Ohio, you may have been part of the most popular wedding band at the time. Is that accurate?
We actually, we played a lot of gigs. I would say that I probably played in close to 150 weddings, I think.
That's
And we
pretty
would tour. So we got to play in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and we went to Kentucky and Cincinnati and recorded and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. I was the only Caucasian in the band. They were all African Americans. Wonderful guys, and one female singer that just sang like Aretha. She just had a voice like a bird, and wonderful experience. And it was a lot of fun. It was I did that for quite a few years when I was still living up there, and it was a great experience.
Just makes you that much cooler.
I don't know about that, but it's certainly a lot of fun.
Well, that's it's been great letting the world know what an incredible jurist you are, an incredible person. Like I said, all the reasons that I chose you, and on top of that, a talented sax player. I mean, come on.
Thank you,
Pretty
Miriam.
great interview.
Really, really appreciate it. Once again, I guess I wasn't that speechless. At least you were able to throw up some lobs to me so I could answer questions. So I do appreciate that. But the work that you're doing and the work that HMBA and all these others that are affiliated with this is outstanding and necessary for our community. And thank you very, very much for selecting me. I don't know what to say.
One of my greatest pleasures and honors as president. So thank you for taking the time to let the world get to know you a little bit better. And we look forward to seeing you on our event, in-person event in a couple of weeks.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, Judge.